Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of On the Mic with Mike. I am your host, Mike Larkin, and joining me today, she is a writer, she is a former professional wrestler, manager, referee. She's pretty much a Jill of all trades. Instead of Jack of all trades, put on the Jill of all trades, Miss Foxxy. Foxxy, it's a pleasure to have you on the show. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me.
You're very welcome. First and foremost, we got to talking about this because I got to give a shout out to Ella J, my friend Ella J of the Wrestling Gal podcast. You did her show, which was a great interview, and you and I got to talking about a lot of the independents like Crusher Dugan, John the Sure Thing, Shane, and NYWC. And here to come find out, god dang, you and Ken Scampy. It also brought me back to my teenage years of why I hated Ken Scampy, that lucky son of a gun. And then bada boom, here you are. You know what I'm saying? And I remember you, Tara Charisma, a lot of great talents from the mid 2000s in the NYWC and the independent scene.
I know, it was such a small world how, like, you hit me up and we start talking. I'm like, wait a minute, you're mentioning where I was. We know each other, and then it all clicked and it was like, whoa. And that's what's so great though about the world of independent wrestling and wrestling as a whole and all these podcasts is that you end up reconnecting with a lot of people, and it's amazing.
It absolutely is. And I think for those who have not checked it out, this is a fellow podcaster, shout outing another fellow podcaster, and Ella J. She does a great work with female empowerment. And this is where you come in, because I got to say this first and foremost. When I was 13, and I'm going to put it out here like this, like everybody at my school knew I was like the biggest wrestling fan, right? So when I would talk about like to NYWC and mentioning indies, the guys look at you like you have three heads, because the guys are trained. They're known that, professional wrestling, they think WWE. At this time, you think of TNA and how they're on the come up. So it's like they don't know what indies are. And then you explain like it's like your local federation. You have NYWC at the Deer Park Community Center. You have various Northeast professional wrestling out there. And it gives a lot of people through word of mouth and just people in general to discover this underground world that you never saw, you never heard before. And then you just become hooked after your first indie show.
It's so true. It is so true. You summed that up so well.
Thank you. But it's true. And I mean, the first time I ever went to like an NYWC show, it's funny because I have a family friend named Carl Lumbo, and he was friends with John the Sure Thing Shane and Havoc of The Solution. And he, got to meet Greek God Papa Don, who's still killing it on in the NYWC. It's one of those things where you see that tag team. Like I remember seeing The Solution at NWA Cyberspace, rest in peace, Billy Firehawk. You get to see them against the Naturals. You get to see them against so many great talents in the New Jersey area, Wayne, New Jersey. And it's just like, my first show was the Psycho Circus from NYWC in 2006. Mason Rage, Dickie Rods. I know I'm taking it back for people here. Yep. Mason Rage, Dickie Rods, Javier, Plasma, who has now gone to be Trent Beretta, Maverick, Tony Nese. Like this is the forefront right here. I can tell you just by your basking in that, just the memories of this particular time.
I am. Yeah, I am.
And it's so true.
It's not only that, the AKAs is just the so great part, because like you hear someone like Plasma, now known as Trent Beretta, or Maverick, now known as Tony Nese, or like even someone Brian Myers and Brett Matthews, also known as it's Zack Ryder, and it's like it's so amazing that they made it in their own rights, and it's like I knew them, and you're just so proud, and it's my heart is full just talking about it.
Oh, I hear you. And it's from a stance, like, I'll be honest with you. I say it every time I do the Max Wrestling podcast I'm on. I'm sure the guys are tired of me talking about the NYWC, but it's one of the things now because they're doing their thing on Impact Wrestling. Matt, always ready, Matt Cardona, Brian Myers, the most professional wrestler. I'm like, I remember when they used to come out with Prince Charles too. It's Got to Be You by the Backstreet Boys, for God's sake. It's one of those things where you had Flawless Blake Morris as the timekeeper. You had so many people involved and encompassed in that. Like, it's even funny. Like, I don't know if you've seen, it's on YouTube. I came across it one time. It's amazing just to see everything that's at your fingertips right now, right?
I know.
So if people go on YouTube and type in NYWC's hottest tag team, it's Brian Myers and Brett Matthews coming out. There's the balloons, and then the balloons come down on them. You know what I'm saying? It's funny to see, just to reminisce of that. And I can't believe that was like, geez, like about 15 years, and you can't believe it because it almost feels like yesterday.
It really does. Such great times.
I mean, we're going down memory lane here, but god dang, man, you had NYWC, you had Jersey All Pro Wrestling, rest in peace,
Mm.
Pat Frank. There's so many indies from the Northeast, and it's funny because my dude Kyle, right, he's a fellow podcaster. We got to talking about this because he's 2 years younger than me, and he goes, Mike, god dang, the mid 2000 independent scene was probably one of the hottest out there. I said,
Mhm.
I'm not disagreeing with you, but it's just amazing to see, and we'll touch upon this as well, the evolution of the independent wrestling scene from when
Mm.
you were to where we are now. Can you just believe all these promotions coming out? A lot of for females. The destination is at your fingertips for indies.
It really, really is. Like, the 2000s were a golden era for indie wrestling as a whole, like the men and the women, because it really started to showcase the talent. It really started to showcase women's wrestling. Like, I fully believe the evolution of women's wrestling started on the indie level with Shimmer and Shine and Women's Wrestling Uncensored. Like there were so many companies, including like Indie Girls, and not only that, but if you look at the talent that's, in places like AEW now or, TNA, a lot of them came from East Coast independent wrestling because this is where Ring of Honor started on the East Coast and they gained traction. And again, we had, oh my God, there's so many to start from, Chikara being a thing and like you said.
Yeah, and that's the thing too, Foxy, because it's one of those things where I look at it from a stance of now. It's funny you mentioned Ring of Honor because my first experience with Ring of Honor, and a lot of people from the Northeast will tell you, Lake Grove, Long Island, Sports Plus. You know what I'm saying? It's
Mm-hmm.
it's one of those things. Like my first ever experience going to Ring of Honor show was Brian Danielson against James Gibson, aka Jamie Noble, for the Ring of Honor World Title. We're talking about Homicide versus Colt Cabana. We're talking about Loki versus
Mm-hmm.
Jay Lethal. And what's funny about it too is because the way I got into Ring of Honor was like, okay, so my mother used to work at the Westbury Music Fair before it was the Theater at Westbury and all these different name changes it went through. She worked at the box office, and my grandmother and my aunt were going to see Engelbert Humperdinck at the time. So I had a choice: do I want to go with my dad to see Ring of Honor, or do I want to go see Engelbert Humperdinck? I think I'm going to take Ring of Honor, please. So so we go to Sports Plus,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just the memories of like going to Sports Plus, the arcade downstairs. You're eating a slice of pizza. It's heavenly. It's a great time. Then you go upstairs to the ballroom, and boom, you got the ring right there. You got Ring of Honor. You got Pele Primo and Shane Hagedorn for the top of the class trophy. You got all these names here, just killing it from the pre-show to the.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Wow.
That's what it is. And
Yeah.
I'm taking everybody back with this, but if you've not been to Sports Plus and experienced the Ring of Honor show, then you don't know what that is because it's just the overall ambience of it too, just because that ballroom was very nice. It is. And it's one of those things I think you could tell as we're talking about the passion here. And now I got to say this to you because I'm going to ask you first and foremost, getting into NYWC, and we'll shoot the breeze and bounce around on pro wrestling here. But I'm curious
Mhm.
about the NYWC run because, man, like I loved, like we talked about mid 2000s NYWC to where NYWC is now. You were kind of like the first pioneer for women. And this is where I give you much respect because I love girls like you. I love girls like Tara Charisma who are doing their thing in NYWC, just that early stages of talent to where NYWC now is with the Starlet, division.
Mhm.
God dang, man, you were like the pioneer for that. And I loved it from the managerial standpoint and what you did. You did your thing and you honed your craft.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Let's talk about the NYWC one first. Like, how'd you first get involved with NYWC? Because I'm kind of curious because the role that you played with Ken Scampy, and also we'll talk about your husband, Damian Dragon. God dang, man.
Mhm.
I loved it. Like, you were so hateable, but you were good at what you did.
Thank you.
Bro.
Well, we actually fell into NYWC by accident, my husband and I, because we were primarily working in New Jersey and a couple shows here and there in Connecticut. And back then, we primarily worked with Jersey Championship Wrestling, which was JCW. And they started bringing in some NYWC guys to come wrestle with them, like we had JD Licious, Tyler Payne, Dan Barry, and we befriended them all. Um, and just as we were hitting our tail ends working with JCW, Tyler called us up and was like, "Hey, I was telling the guys about you, and Mikey and Shane, they want you to come down." We're like, "What?" Like we wanted to work with NYWC, but we weren't pushing the issue, and we befriended the guys just because it was like they were cool guys and we wanted to make them feel welcome at JCW, and our friendliness and our locker room ethic and all that attained us the invite to work with NYWC. And back then, they didn't really bring in a lot of outside talent. So we were very like, okay, maybe this is a one-shot deal, who knows? But, we got along with everyone. They embraced us, welcomed us into the family quite quickly. And then we just became a solid part of their roster. And when I say family, I mean that in like the literal sense. Like, we invited some of the guys to David and I's wedding. We announced the pregnancy of our first child to the locker room before we even told like my parents. And, whenever we brought our first child around, they always welcomed him. They're like, hey, we'll watch him while you guys do your thing on the ring. It's cool. So like, again, it happened by accident, but it became one of the best experiences that we had. And like, other than that, the fans really embraced us too. Cause we're that married goth couple, with a family. And then, Scampy and I, we were best friends, like thick as thieves. And when they approached us about working together and doing such a controversial storyline, we're like, hell yeah, let's do this. Let's make people angry. And we did. And it was just such a fun ride. And a lot of the growth that I had as a character, as Foxxy, and as a person was attributed heavily to NYWC.
You know what it is? I look at your character, and I mean, in some sort of like goth way, and I'll put it like this. I'll throw a name out here. So if people remember the early days of NWA TNA, Sonny Siaki, he had Desire, every man's desire. We got Foxy Dreams over here. There's somewhat parallels there because you played just that seductive, that beautiful woman. And you got Desire over here. Then you got Desire and Foxy. Kind of equates in a little bit, but you both had that swag about you. And that's what I loved about everything to do with just, that type of manager, that type of character. You want to talk about controversial angles, right? You're doing your thing with Ken Scampy. Go back to CW. Kimono Wanalea, Beulah McGill, one of the most controversial angles, but god dang, man, it's stuck. And to see Tommy Dreamer in the middle of that, Raven and so many people, and Shane Douglas, the franchise, like that, it makes for a great angle. That makes shock value. And that's one of the best things that you see in wrestling is that shock factor and that overall appeal to it.
Absolutely. And my thing was when I started training back in the day, my goal was ECW. Like I didn't want to be a WWF girl or WWE girl. That wasn't my thing. My making it was ECW. So when they did approach me with the controversial angle of, quote unquote, fake cheating on my husband with Scampy and blah, 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 I was all for it because it had that feel and like I knew I could play it off. And, the world kind of knowing that I was married kind of had me stuck in a bubble too of, manage your husband, you're always going to be the baby face. So when they approached me with that, again, I embraced it like it's something different. You guys have the faith and trust in me. Let's do this. And it just worked so great.
That it did. And I also look at it from a stance too, like, all right, now you're talking about ECW in the later days as well. I mean, you had 99, 2000. Like, I mean, you had a lot of talent coming in, like Christian York and Joey Matthews, aka Joey Mercury. God dang, man, that playing field was great. You had Danny Doring and Roadkill managed by Miss Congeniality, aka Lita. You had people there. You had the Prodigy Angel Orsini. You had a lot of talented females there. I'm going to say this right now. You would be a great fit. You would have been a great fit, but god dang, man, it's funny just to see how the world just goes. You know what I'm saying? You and your husband, and I'm going to say this right now. God bless you and your husband. Y'all are still killing it, doing the damn thing. I got to give
you.
Oh, you're welcome. It's one of the things where I've seen Damien do his thing against, like we mentioned, Plasma. I believe Tony Burma was in there. Tony Burma and Mike Spinelli. Hey, take it back. But it's one of those things as well. Like you guys had Jamie Van Leemer there. You had Dan Dynasty back in the mid 2000s there. Of course, Mike Whipwreck. You had so many people come through NYWC. The Dudley Boys. Talk about Jerry Lynn, former NYWC champ. Matt Eisen, Spike Dudley. Like I'm going to say this right now. This was the time period right here. Because if you also look, as you were talking about WWE and WWF girls, man, Matt Eisen coming off his run in WWE, being the boss, the heel Spike Dudley. And then here we are, NYWC. Some of those memories, like I said, you could tell I'm getting passionate about this, stick out in the mind, and a lot of people can resonate and generate this. But I love the fact, going back to the Scampy thing for a second, it kind of reminds me when I was 12 years old. I'm at Madison Square Garden. It's WrestleMania 20, the whole Chris Jericho, Christian Trish Stratus storyline.
Yes.
See, so you're going to a stance where it's like, God damn, Christian, he's trying to break this up. He's that bitter best friend. But at the end of the day, the shock value, everybody, when she slaps Chris Jericho, unprettier, drops him, then as Jerry the King Lawler said, tonsil hockey. It's like, that son of a bitch. You get invested in that. Go ahead.
Yes. Like that. I'm so happy you brought that up because I loved that angle. I loved the twist. And when they did approach me with that, we took so much inspiration from that moment. And like, oh, I miss things like that in wrestling, to be perfectly honest with you. Like, but that angle was so good.
A lot of people don't even realize like how underrated it is. Because I remember at the time, I mean, like, geez, like take it back to 03. Like when they did the battle of the sexist stuff, people were like, whatever. But I'm like, this is, if you think about this, is really good because look at the mannerisms. And I think a lot of people don't realize the mannerisms and nuances in this. When Christian gets the win in that match at Armageddon, right? He's acting like he won the world title. Like, oh my God, I just won this big match. Chris Jericho has that deflected, dejected, like, oh man, that look. And then because he really feels for the girl, that being Trish Stratus, then you build that all the way to Mania, and there's the payoff to it. And it's like, you really just feel for poor Chris Jericho, and that's what makes great storytelling. You know what
exactly. That, and it's very loosely based on real life. Yep. Like these things can happen in real life, and that's such an element that I feel is missing right now, is the element of, well, we know everything, unfortunately, that goes on behind the scenes, but in that we can't suspend our belief for a storyline that encompasses something that does happen in daily life. So
I agree. It's one of those things nowadays. I'll be honest with you, when they were doing this stuff with Dean Ambrose, Jon Moxley at the end, towards his end of the WWE tenure, when they're mentioning, Renee Young and him being married, like, here's the thing. Everything is out on social media right now, so it's very hard to hide everything. You know what I'm saying? We don't have that element of surprise anymore.
Exactly.
And I mean, I understand, with the technological advances and everything from social media standpoint, but it's like, goddamn, I wish sometimes social media didn't exist. And a lot of people can agree with me on that, because
yes,
even in wrestling, even in what have you, there's no surprise anymore. Like, I'll be honest with you, when you see, like we were talking about Chris Jericho and Christian, like that time period for the WWE, and you were talking about the inspiration from that angle, like when the real life stuff that did happen with Matt Hardy, Lita, and Edge, like that's based off real life, but it made for some incredible moments and matches to do business, make money with,
Yeah. And even so far as like the Trish Jericho Christian Lita thing, like we didn't know anything that was going on. Therefore, we couldn't sit there and go, oh, well, this storyline's stupid, because we all know Trish is actually engaged. Like we didn't know. Therefore, we bought it. It was believable. I miss the days before social media.
Hey, I'll be honest with you. As a 28-year-old man, I guess I got like an old soul. You know what I'm saying? Because I'll be honest with you, and I'm going to put it like this, since we're bouncing around with social media. This will make you laugh. I didn't get a social media with Facebook until like 2010, the year I graduated high school, right? And the only reason why it happened is because I didn't want nothing to do with this. I thought it was stupid, because one of the girls that I was friends with wanted to add me on Facebook. And I'll be honest with you, I'm like, I really don't do Facebook. And she's like, what? You don't do Facebook? I'm like, all right, let me just create this. And then it becomes addicting, because like the first day you did it, I had like 40 something friend requests. And I'm like, oh God. And I mean, it's one of that. I mean that I mean that in the utmost sincerity and respect way. But I mean, I'll be honest with you, a lot of us are kind of private people. So you don't want to have everything out there, but it's just like, I get it. You know what I'm saying? To keep in touch with people. But at the end of the day, it's just, you just want to rip your hair out. And it's great, and it's great from a promotional standpoint, but yeah, you know.
No, I totally get it. It's a blessing and a curse, because, social media has provided, the opportunity to, contact old friends, keep in touch with friends that are far away. And that's the blessing of it. But there is the curse of it, because, I mean, your Facebook story is similar to my Instagram story. I only had Facebook and Twitter, and I never used to use even Twitter, but everyone's like, oh, get on Instagram. Like, okay. So the minute I got an Instagram, I didn't know that all of it was hooked up together, and everyone started following me. And I'm freaking out. I'm like, oh my God, what's going on? So no, I get it. It is a blessing and a curse.
Hey, man. Well, it also did provide us with the Social Network movie, and goddamn Jesse Eisenberg being the shithead that he was, playing Mark Zuckerberg. So to that. And also seeing Justin Timberlake play Sean Parker in the role of the Napster guy. Oh my goodness gracious. But it did make for some good movie entertainment,
Yeah, that it did.
Oh my goodness. But going back to NYWC for a second, and then we'll go around with all this wrestling stuff, because man, we're getting the juices flowing here. And I mean, you're mentioning companies that, it's funny, because I was not the ordinary kid after school who would just, do sports or anything after school or what have you, or would participate in any school activities. I was a kid going home, doing homework, going on to Gerwick.net, for those who remember Gerwick.net. Steve Gerwick, who still does.
Wow.
See? All right, I'm taking it back. She knows where I'm going with this.
I do.
So he had everything from WWE profiles. He had a lot of indie wrestlers on there. So most of the time where I got to know about independent wrestlers like yourself and people on the roster was through Gerwick.net and WWE profiles, and get to see the statistics and the matches and stuff. And I used to keep like a book at the end of the day, because it's funny how we're doing podcasting now. I used to write blogs and used to review matches and stuff because it was what I loved. And, watching Sunday Night Heat on MTV before the shows and everything that we had back in the day. I mean, you kind of like to use like equate it to something like right now. Look what AEW is doing with AEW Dark. It's a secondary show, but it provides the platform for all these indie stars to get their names,
Exactly.
And that's what I love, because god dang, I see people like yourself. I've seen people on the come up, and I'm going to say it like this because NYWC, and what I love about it too, is I mentioned names like John the Shirt Thing Shane. I mentioned Crusher Dugan, God rest his soul. The amount of knowledge that is there between those men, and I'll also throw Prince Charles into that, because Prince Charles, another amazing manager and amazing mind for wrestling. Like, you had that tutelage there. You know what I'm saying? Keep your eyes, your ears open, eyes open. Like, that is just great advice and tutelage there from some of the locker room there,
Absolutely.
Like, you get to know all these people, you and your husband, and we've talked about every talent that was there. Like, god dang, man, like, that's what I love about it, because you were talking about, your the wrestling family is like your second family. The locker room, knowing about your pregnancy, like that camaraderie is just absolutely amazing just to see in the business as well.
Yeah, it was, well, I know back then it was very rare, because back then was the uprise of message boards and all of that nonsense. So to really find others that you can connect with and trust and call family or best friends was very, very rare, and because back then there wasn't a sisterhood, among the females, and there were cliques within cliques within cliques, and it was very, very minuscule places that you could find people to connect with. But the one advantage with NYWC, of all the places that I'd ever worked, was that there wasn't any cliques there. Everybody got along with everybody. Everybody embraced everyone. And it was such a different atmosphere. I remember just being taken aback by it. I'm like, this is strange. Like, it's a good strange, but strange, because I wasn't used to something like that. And I mean, I held on to it for as long as I could. I'm not gonna lie.
Well, it is very rare as you say that, because I mean, I'll be honest with you, as someone who does love and respect the wrestling business and the craft that you guys and gals put in there, the wrestling business is known for, being what it is. And I'm not trying to put a negative connotation on that, but we've heard stories over the years and for people that have lived it. But it's very rare just to hear about that. And that's actually one of the good things that I like, because we've seen in media how wrestling is supposed to be painted as the, this negative light, this picture, right? But a lot of people don't even realize, like, there's a lot of positivity that goes into it. And I think nowadays, especially when you see everybody that has that same goal, that same drive, that same passion that we've seen for years, everybody just wants to go out there and put on a damn good show. Everybody wants to go to different companies. And I think that's what's great about the companies now. You don't just have the focal point of WWE. You got AEW, you got Impact Wrestling. You have so many promotions out there. You can go over to Japan. And I think that's also what's great about it too, is because you have so many promotions. It's kind of like the territory days, like at the golden age of wrestling in the 80s. You have so many promotions / territories to go to apply and hone your craft. Like, the possibilities are endless, if you know what I'm saying.
Oh, I do. I absolutely know what you're saying. And not only that, but finding these is so much easier too. With this is one of the blessings of the internet. You could find somewhere to go. You could find, a school or a local show. And even if you don't, you have access to so many independent wrestling companies at your fingertips these days, that it almost is like a secondary golden era. Like, if you don't like something, like say on TV, you have dozens upon dozens of other choices to find something you love and find a company you love and wrestlers you'll connect with. So, like, that is definitely one blessing out of all this social media boom and the internet. And again, it almost feels like a secondary golden era with so many options.
Agreed wholeheartedly on that. And I'll be honest with you, what's amazing too is like we were talking about Brian Myers earlier before that. Like one of my favorite moments, and I'm going to say this right now, I had the privilege to be there. Like I got to see him and Brett Matthews, that tribute video on their last night in NYWC. If you guys have not seen that tribute video, it's somewhere on YouTube. It was done very well, you know, before they went to Deep South Wrestling, before the Major Brothers debuted on WWE television, some of the best moments. And Brian in his own right, wrestling school, Creative Pro, you know what I'm saying? Hicksville, Long Island, one of the best schools out there. I mean, two of the graduates we're seeing on AEW now. AEW Dark, we got Bear Bronson as a part of Bear Country. We got MJF doing his thing, main eventing against John Moxley on AEW pay-per-view. Like, it's just amazing to see these cats, these kids, if you will, just make it to the AEW, make it to wherever. Like that, like that's prominence right there.
It is. It really is.
And I mean, I look at someone like MJF, and I think you can agree with me on that. This dude, like the old school mentality, he kind of reminds you of a hot stuff Eddie Gilbert. We're talking about Roddy Piper. That dude has got it. He's got that factor about him. And that's what I appreciate, because he's kind of the old mantra of the old school. And that's what I like about him, because you don't see, and I'll be honest with you, I like high octane aerial assault, but when that dude does his armbar, the salt of the earth, what he does and how he works and grinds on you, it's one of the things that just makes you smile, because it reminds you of the old school days of systematic dissection, joint manipulation, like working over the body parts, you know what I'm saying?
Yes, I know exactly what you are saying.
That's my thing.
And I love it. I love it.
Thank you. And here's the thing too. Like I love the high octane air assault. I do. And I love the dives and stuff. But I got to say sometimes, and here's the thing, slow it down. You know what I'm saying? Because, you know, higher the risk, the higher reward. But it doesn't make it special anymore if I'm going to keep seeing tope suicidas almost every single match. And that's
yeah. Oh my God. You're like in my head.
But that's my thing, though, because here's the thing, and I like watching NXT UK. I know a lot of people aren't familiar. You know, there's so much wrestling in a week, like you can't keep up. I'll be honest with you, I can't keep up either. There's been weeks and weeks, but the whole thing with just, you know, priorities. There we go. There's the word I'm looking for, and work. So yes. I digress. So when you see promotions like NXT UK and they focus on British wrestling and the old school, you know, mentality of it, like you see dives there. But what I love about it is Walter's just such a brute. Like you just have chops and it's like, holy shit, because it's a chop, the power that he has in that hand to just whack you on the chest. Like that's the stuff that I think is just missing, because it's the simple moves. It's the simple holds. You know what I'm saying? These guys don't have to dive all the time. You know what I'm saying? Like just to have a great match. Like I'm watching him and A-Kid. I'm watching guys like Pete Dunne. You hardly, I mean, he does some dives, but when he works on the fingers, you're like, oh my God, it's just the little nuances. You know what I'm saying?
I know.
It's just, you know what it is too? It reminds me of video game wrestling. You know what I'm saying? And I'm a big gamer. I used to love playing the WWE game, still to this day. But it's like every time I'm seeing everybody go so quick, it's like X, triangle, circle, square, R1, L2. You know what I'm saying? It's like, goddamn, slow down. Again, but yeah, I think a lot of people can resonate and generate with that, but it's very true. You know what I'm saying? Because again, the injuries are there. You know what I'm saying? You want to have these guys and gals have prominent careers going forward. So it's just like, you know what? Like slow the, I mean, I'm going to put it bluntly, slow the fuck down. You know what I'm saying?
I know exactly what you are saying. Yes, I do.
It's just, and what I love about it too, about this day and age is we have so many styles of wrestling, from the lucha libre, from intergender wrestling. I mean, I'll touch upon intergender wrestling here. I think you can agree, like the days of Andy Kaufman and Jerry the King Lawler. You want to wrestle me, man? Memphis, Tennessee, Durr. And when he's wrestling the 200-pound woman, like you see that stuff from the 80s, and you see so much encompassed in that comedic relief. And I loved it because it was great storytelling. But man, intergender wrestling is what I love to see, because look at Lucha Underground. Look at what we see on the independent circuit. Like, I love that mix of intergender wrestling. And I mean, ECW, we were talking about that. Bill Alfonso, Beulah McGillicuddy, one of the most prominent 5 minutes. You got Bill Alfonso in the Crimson Mask. It's one of those things where, like, to see the boom of that, you know what I'm saying? It's very interesting and cool, because there's some dynamics and great dynamics within intergender wrestling as well.
There are. I mean, I don't know how to word it. I mean, I'm a little indifferent when it does come to intergender wrestling, only because like certain dynamics of it I feel don't work at times. Like, okay, for example, you were just Beulah, Bill Alfonso, utterly and completely worked, not just for storyline purposes, because you know, same height, same weight, it was an even playing field. And there are a lot of times I've seen intergender wrestling where the there's really no fairness and there's no balance. Therefore, sometimes it does become a little hard to suspend your belief. And, to an extent where it's like, okay, so he's like way bigger than her. How the hell is she getting up right now? Again, it more so falls into the suspending of the belief part, because intergender wrestling was huge on the indies for a very, very, very long time. I've participated in many myself. But like, so there was a balance to it. Like one guy that I wrestled was shorter than me, lankier than me. Therefore, it was almost an even playing field. Several of the men that I wrestled, did homosexual angles. So therefore, it was quote unquote fair because, I'm a girl, they're feminine, and there have been instances where, you have a big, muscular, very well-trained guy against, a female who was in shape and athletic, but not enough where you would believe that if she can lift him for a power bomb, he'd be out cold. I hope I'm making sense in this.
Yeah. See, I'm gonna segue off this because I'm gonna say same mindset as well. You're like reading my mind. Here we go, because we'll be compatible on this, Miss Foxxy. It's one of those things where I look at it from a stance. Okay, it was a great match. I'm gonna put it like this because I've seen them wrestle in Impact Wrestling. I believe it was Wrestle Circus as well. People know where I'm going with this. Brian Cage and Tessa Blanchard. I mean, I'm gonna say this right now. Okay, Tessa Blanchard is, like what, 5 foot something, like very, very short. I mean, we've seen Tessa Blanchard's, stature. Then you got the machine, Brian Cage. Yes, I'm going to emphasize Brian Cage with the way that he looks, kind of like the Terminator. And it's like, okay. And what I mean by okay is like we're not just going to pretend like, you know what I'm saying? Like, hello, one of these things is not like the other. So it's just like how they balance and how they work off each other. Now, I've seen great intergender wrestling as well. I've seen it in
Absolutely.
I've seen it in NYWC. I've seen it all over the indies, but it's stuff like that where I'm kind of like, okay, okay.
Yeah, I get it, because again, it falls into the real life. And yes, we know wrestling is, entertainment, and you got to suspend your belief. But there are some instances where you're like, I am not sure if I can suspend my belief enough to believe this. But okay, like again, I have nothing against intergender wrestling, and it does boom a female empowerment theme to it. So like I'm not knocking it. It's just, as a former wrestler and has done it, it's just there are some instances where it's like, maybe this isn't a good idea.
No, I understand. And I mean, WWE recently did it with well, they're doing it now with Reginald, you know what I'm saying, with Carmella. And I mean, I'm okay with that because what they did with Sasha Banks, he's just doing a lot of flips and stuff. It depends on, like you were talking about, like how you portray it and how the story goes. Like, I understand it. And this is a kid that's been training at the Performance Center. And here we are now. He's on the main roster doing this stuff. And it's believable because, he's not that big of a dude. So you can get away with it. But it's like, I understand it from the storytelling perspective as well. And if it makes sense, you know what I'm saying? I'm happy with it because I'll be honest with you. I'm going to say this to you as well, because you also brought up another great point because we were talking about video games and stuff like that. Here's the thing, when it comes to roster, and I think a lot of people can agree with me, besides independent wrestling, and I think we could tell throughout this conversation so far, big proponent of independent wrestling and supporting your local promotions. But what's amazing about it, I'll put the second alternative out there. When you're playing a WWE video game or a wrestling video game, and you're playing that season mode, and I think people know where I'm going with this, and you see the storytelling in the season modes, and then you watch some of the stuff that's on the main roster, and you're shaking your head at the main roster, and then you get into that virtual reality of just WWE games in season mode and just seeing how everything's drawn out and play out in the storytelling in a video game. A lot of people can resonate and generate with that because a lot of people are like, God dang, man, I'm playing this video game. It's awesome. It's great. But when you tell the storytelling of it, it's like, why can't stuff like this be on the main roster? You know what I'm saying?
I know exactly what you're saying. I mean, at the end of the day, because I say that a lot too in my house, so do my kids. I'm sorry, for a 10-year-old to say something similar, it's like, maybe I should listen to the 10-year-old. But like, I think a lot of it falls into the fact of, other than the writing itself, it's also the fact that, given the day and age that we are with instant gratification, it's more so attention span to a certain extent. Similar to, like, for example, Game of Thrones, everybody would watch the show. I did as well. And there were some people that would watch it and go, oh, this first episode was so boring. Let's just get to the meat and potatoes already. And it's like, but you can't. You need to lay your foundation. Why is this stuff happening? And, with binge watching things on Netflix as opposed to waiting a week for the episode, a lot of it just falls into the instant gratification. So they want to get the stories wrapped up quick to go to the next one in order to keep someone's attention to it. But it doesn't always work, unfortunately, when it comes to that, because there are some stories that are so good you want more, but they're catering to the instant gratification of it all.
I'm so glad you mentioned Netflix as well, because we're going to go here on this Netflix kick here. So I watched The Haunting of Bly Manor, and I'm going to say this right now, people. If you've not seen it, it's very interesting. Check out The Haunting of Bly Manor on Netflix. All right, it starts out at their house, and like we start to find out why it's haunting and why the kids are acting the way they are. I'll be honest with you, it starts off like, okay, let me see where this goes. By like the 4th or 5th episode, you start realizing like what's going on. You're putting the pieces together, and that's why I say, because like you were talking about Game of Thrones and being so boring. Like the first episode, it's like, okay, but it's like you want to tune in to the next episode to find out why it is. I mean, that makes sense. And I'll put it into wrestling perspective. When the Firefly Funhouse started with Bray Wyatt, everybody went apeshit like, what is this? It reminds me of a Mr. Rogers or a Blue's Clues. And I'm like, let it play out. And it's like one of the biggest characters on WWE television right now. The Fiend, Bray Wyatt, Alexa Bliss, and everything that's encompassed with that. And life being a circle. And he's going against his former opponents. Like, that stuff makes sense. Like, let it play out.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's the thing. Nobody lets it play out anymore. Everybody just judges by like the first thing. I'm like, come on, man. Like, get invested into the story. And that's what pisses me off nowadays about some of the wrestling fans, because it's just like, let's let this play out, like give it a chance. Everybody, I'm going to say it right now. I'm going to use a phrase. They ultimately dismiss it. And it's like, don't ultimately dismiss it. Like, let's actually watch, see where it goes. And then you can make an assumption.
Yeah. Patience is a virtue. And unfortunately, patience is also a lost thing amongst people sometimes.
Wisdom right there. Wisdom. Okay. Now we're going to flip it back as well, because Gino Caruso, East Coast Championship Wrestling, my goodness, like, isn't you just to see? And I know you talked about, in regards to training and Gino Caruso, that dude is still doing his thing, training a lot of talents as well. Like, just the stuff that you learn. I'm going to ask you about Gino Caruso, because legend on the independents, great trainer. He does a lot of great work. And I remember, it's interesting because I remember seeing East Coast Pro Wrestling, and I remember seeing a lot of this along with NYWC encompassed. It's like a bubble, you take it in. I'm like a sponge with the independent wrestling here, but it's like, God dang, man, Gino Caruso, where you were to where he is now, isn't just amazing to see him killing it and still training young students of this new generation?
Oh, absolutely. Like, the school itself, I don't know how long it was around before I joined, but it was there. And, after I left, I would always still, keep in contact. I would visit the school. I ended up working shows there when they would rent the school out. And, just a couple months ago, I saw independent wrestler Azriel over there working. I'm like, wow, it's amazing to see that he's still flourishing in the company and the school, because there were many that popped up in the 90s that didn't stick around, as far as schools are concerned, or even the mainstays from back then that were indie legends, so it's surreal in a way. It's like, wow, it's still there. I can still go back anytime I want just to say hi. It's so great.
You made me smile with that name there, because the first time I remember seeing Azriel, who, by the way, people, again, if you've not seen independent work, Azriel was great. He's like one of the most talented dudes out at this time period. Like, I remember watching him, Jersey All Pro Wrestling. I remember watching him in Backseat Boys, Trent Acid, God rest his soul, and Johnny Cash. Okay. That prime matches in JAPW. I was actually there for one of his matches. It's funny because it was a Ring of Honor show. Bryan Danielson, Daniel Bryan, was the Ring of Honor world champion. He had like 2 matches back to back. His first one was with Azriel. Great match. And then after that, he squashed Pele Primo, but I digress. And it's one of those things where, like, back to back and seeing this dude perform, I'm like, all right. Because I remember hearing his name at Jersey All Pro Wrestling. And then once you get to see that live, I'm like, okay, look at him do his thing. Like, he's another one that was very prominent in the mid 2000s with the independent circuit.
Yeah, he was.
That's what I'm saying. Like this trip down memory lane, and this is why I love it as well, because I see a lot of talents. And like I said, I've got to interview a lot of great talents. This is what I love about podcasting platform to tell your story. Like, god dang, man, you see Northeast Wrestling in Connecticut, you see NYWC, you see Creative Pro, you see all these guys and gals. And it's what I love about it too is because, and I was talking about you paving the way for a lot of the starlets in NYWC, like Willow Nightingale, Wow Women of Wrestling, Eye Candy. I'm talking about people like Brittany Savage was in there. I'm talking about people like, excuse me, like we've seen so many people in WSU, like Sassy Steffi. We've seen Marty Bell. We've seen a lot of people go through NYWC and the tie-ins with WSU as well, because Women Superstars Uncensored has produced a lot of great talent that we've seen on our television. And I'm glad you mentioned that company. And I'm glad you mentioned companies like Shimmer, Rise. I mean, Shine, for God's sake. Like if you look at Shimmer, some of the prominent talents have competed in the Mae Young Classic and are in WWE today. And I mean, I'll take it back with this one. And here's why I loved it. And then we'll tie in and correlate with this here, Foxy. Man, I remember watching a lot of women's wrestling, and people can talk about the fact that, you know, like the time that the women's matches didn't get. It was very quick, you know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
now we're focusing on the time and letting the woman put in the work, and this is why I love Shimmer. Like I remember watching Daisy Hayes against Sarah Del Rey live and in person at, you know, Lake Grove, Long Island, man. Like you see Sarah Del Rey who's doing her thing, coaching and prominent the talent in NXT, and then you see Daisy Hayes, which she was goddamn good. And I'm going to put it like
She
that.
was.
And it's one of the things that's like, why can't this wrestling see what we do in WWE in the main roster? You know what I'm saying? Because it's like they gave these girls time and it was good. And I'm like, this is what is missing on today's roster. And that's why I would go back to independent wrestling, because it's like you actually are giving these girls time. They can work.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember when it was when I was just managing and not necessarily wrestling it, but I remember working for Jason Knight in Connecticut with his company, Assault Championship Wrestling. And he only had 2 females that he was training to wrestle. And let me just say, the Connecticut crowd was way ahead of the curve when it came to women's wrestling, because they not only wanted women's matches on shows, but they looked at women's wrestling as wrestling and not just, you know, 2 hot chicks going at it, you know? And I was sitting just to watch the match when my stuff was over. And it was his 2 students at the time, which was Trinity H. Campbell, who later went as the name Della Morte, and a woman that everybody knows now, Mercedes Martinez. And I just remember sitting there going, wow, they're getting time. They're actually doing wrestling and not a couple moves here and there and some fluff, which is what I would have to do at times back then. Because while women were in wrestling and training, they weren't training yet, you know? So it all, to me, it all started, like, again, with those one matches here and there where guys were like, yes, we want to actually see wrestling. And then from there, another lovely lady came out of Jason's school back then, known as Talia Madison, who everyone now would know as Velvet Sky. Because then she started teaming with April Hunter around the indies. And that's when the booms really started. You had April Hunter, you had Talia Madison, Alicia, Cha-Cha, Tara. It really started coming up. And then once it gained so much traction, that's when the companies started. We had WSU, which back then was Women's Superstars Unleashed, before it was Uncensored. And there was Indie Girls, and then Shimmer, and everything just evolved so much. And from the evolution there, the respect also came, because like fans would still go, oh, well, she's pretty and she's hot or whatever. But it was more. It became a little less superficial and more respected. And now here we are with what women's wrestling is. And it was one of those things where I always knew I was going to see it happen, but still to see it happen is like, whoa, okay. It happened.
It did. And I'm going to say you made me smile again. And here's why. Like April Hunter, like I remember, okay, beautiful woman. And I'm going to say this right now, a lot of talent as well. But my first intro to April Hunter was, I'm going to take it back, her and Slick Wagner Brown and NW.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, see, all right. For those who have not seen it, watch Slick Wagner Brown against like Rodney Mack, and April Hunter's all up in the mix and stuff from NWA Cyberspace. It's good times. It's really good times. And then also you mentioned Talia Madison. Okay, the first time I ever saw Velvet Sky, it's funny because you never know where someone's going to go after like they have matches and stuff, or how they work as extras, which by the way, I'm going to say this right now. And here's what I've hated. Sidebar here. Enhancement talents. I've also always hated the word jobber because I'm like, okay, enhancement talents are there to make them look good, but also the fact that they're on TV and they're getting work. Like that's appreciative, and I can appreciate because it doesn't matter if it's like X amount of seconds or minutes. They're in there, to get the spotlight and also just work with these veteran talents. And I mean, a lot of people don't realize just like the great experience that is, you know what I'm saying? Because us as wrestling fans are designated and we know the term is jobber, which I'm like, you know what? Like, no, you know what I'm saying? There's where you have to realize like, yo, just these talents doing what they need to do. Like, I'll be honest with you. I've seen a lot of talents just go in there and get killed in like 30 seconds, but that's prominence on there because it also builds the superstar and also gets your name out there and get to see yourself on live TV and get that opportunity for things down the road. And this is where I take it with Talia Madison. The first time I ever saw her wrestle was against Victoria on an episode on Sunday Night Heat. And then she did like an extra work with Trinity at the time when she was in WWE Developmental after leaving TNA. And I'm going to take it back. The Heartthrobs when they were baby faces and they had girls come in the ring and start dancing with them. Romeo and Antonio. Okay, you see where I'm going with this. So then she goes into the knockouts with Angelina Love, and they weren't even the beautiful people yet. They were just Angelina Love and Velvet Sky. And then here we are. They blow up as the beautiful people. And like you mentioned, Mercedes Martinez, and I've been saying this for years, like watching her in the Mae Young Classic, watching her on the Indies, and I'm like, why the hell haven't they signed this girl? And now here we are. Right. And now here we are. She just had the match with Io Shirai and Toni Storm at TakeOver, which was excellent. And they're building her as like this killer on the NXT roster, which is what she should be. She's that dominant force. But at the end of the day, you also look at it as she's the veteran. She's also there to help out the young talent. So it's a win-win all around.
It really is. I smile every time she comes on TV.
Me too.
Till this, because like my husband and I still talk to her. We've never lost contact with her. And just to see the stuff that she's doing and we're messaging back and forth. It's like, it's always this surreal feeling. Like it always has been. Cause I mean, other than still watching wrestling because my kids love wrestling, it's like, I always still watch just to see, all right, when are people that I knew or some of my friends going to pop on up? And then they do. And you're like, oh my God. It's like, it's and in having kids, I could say it's the equivalent when you see your friends on TV or doing a spa where it's the equivalent of, oh my God, look, he's walking. Like,
oh, I get it. I mean, I had that same feeling when I mentioned Bronson earlier. Like for those that don't know, Bear Bronson, who is a part of Bear Country, like him and I went to the same high school. Like he graduated years after me and we both took our paths. We were both professional wrestling fans and we love what we did. Me doing what I'm doing here and him just going out there and killing it, on AEW Dark. I'm like, God dang, man, this is the same dude I knew from high school, and he's trained in Creative Pro and CZW Dojo Wars with MJF, and here he is on AEW Dark doing the damn thing. Another one I'll mention from NYWC, who I'm still good friends with to this day, JT Tackleberry, better known as Kaysen. Like seeing seeing that dude from where he started to where he is now, he's another one that's killed it. Him and I also went to the same high school. He graduated years and years and years before me because he's an old son of a bitch. I'm only kidding. But it's one of those, but it's one of those things where I look at it from a stance. It's like you get to see people from your hometown, get to see people just do their thing, and it puts that smile on your face. Not just from your hometown, but people that you've seen grind. And I'll use that word grind over the indies over years and years and years, and they stuck to it. And here we are, we're on the prominence and are getting the spotlight that they rightfully deserve.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's just, it's amazing just to see where the parallels in professional wrestling are. Like you mentioned, like you were talking about WSU and Shimmer and everything. And I look at it from a stance too. Another thing that I really enjoy is the international scene in professional wrestling. I mentioned NXT UK, but I always loved when Ring of Honor were bringing the Stardom talents, and New Japan would do it too. Like you get to see Mayu Iwatani, Sumi Sakai, you get to see all these Japanese talents, and that's what I loved about professional wrestling too, because the international relationships as well, because a lot of people want to go from the States, from England to Japan and vice versa. Like that connection and that styles, like it's good because we get to see them in the forefront,
I do. Yeah.
Like, and that's what I always appreciate about you. And I'm going to say this right now. We were talking about your nuances, and I've told you this, like you're still doing your thing. You're still gorgeous. Looking at it as only as you can look. No, and I mean that with the utmost sincerity.
No, I know.
Because it's like, God dang, man. Like, and I told you this because it's like, this is the same woman. Like I said, you have that vivaciousness. You have that thing that really encompassed everybody to just hate you, and that's what I loved about your character. But the goth look helps too, and I'm going to say this right now. The goth stuff is cool because I was that kid in school that got along with everybody, and I got along with the goths as well. And I also look at it from a stance too, because I also liked some of that rock music, and I liked music in general, but that really wouldn't encompass me because I would encompass pop culture and wrestling into what I do. And like the goth stuff, it's cool. It has that unique look because you're not that, I don't want to say this like this, but goddamn Barbie doll, if you will. Like you look like the model and stuff, but it's a different look. And it's like, okay, like look at Paige, for God's sake. Like she didn't look like your typical diva. And that's like, all right, I'm going to go to the anti-diva page in NXT. So it's stuff like that, and the uniqueness and just everything that's encompassed with something that's different, something that's fresh, something that's new. That's why I appreciate it as well, because you had that look that was just like, all right, I'm drawn to this.
I mean, you know, for the most, it's another way to like connect to people as well. I mean, because when I started doing the whole goth look in wrestling, because I didn't start out with my goth look. I started as Foxxy, and I was just like a rocker chick. When I took on the role of Foxy Dreams and went completely goth, it was the most comfortable I'd ever felt at that point in wrestling, because that's who I was in real life. You know, I was the goth girl in high school, the only goth girl in high school, and you know, black clothing, black lipstick, Marilyn Manson, all of that. So to bring it into wrestling was comfortable for me, and I was able to truly be myself and be comfortable ringside. But what I didn't realize in doing it was that it garnered like a special connection with people in the crowd. Like I remember debuting the look at JCW, and you know, a lot of people thought the look wasn't going to go over right. It was going to fail. We were going to be heels, but fans like connected with it because goth, while some people saw it as scary, others saw it as being an underdog and being different, and like everyone is so different and everyone has felt like an outcast, and it just connected with so many people. And for them to actually know, okay, no, this is actually who she is in real life, really established an even better connection, which is why I love, you know, people like Paige, who, yes, was the anti-diva, but it was also a matter of it made a connection to, you know, little girls watching at that time where, okay, well, I'm pale and I have black hair too, and I like the rock music and scream. There's a place for me somewhere. And it's like every wrestler has that one special thing that they either look a certain way or act a certain way that connects to someone. And that's what makes it all so special and memorable. Like, you know, you just said you remembered me doing my thing. It's like, that was me. This is who I am. Even till this very day, this is just, it's who I am. And to leave a mark on anyone like that is always way more important than anything else you've done ringside or even in the ring.
Of course, and then you make the assumption that, all right, I officially hate Ken Scampy. No, I'm kidding, but it's one of those things. It's one of those things where, like, I enjoyed, like, I can tell you this straight up, like everything that you did, and I'll give you the utmost sincerity and respect, like everything that was encompassed from your in-ring ability, from what you did as a manager. I think a lot of people, I'm going to say this right now, I think a lot of people don't realize like the effect and the inspiring, encouraging people, because I'm going to put it like this, like somebody's going to watch your tape, or somebody's going to see some of the, you know, tapes from yesteryear and what we have now with the current generation of women. Like you're at the forefront of that. And I think that's wonderful because you get to, you know, inspire, encourage, and I still instill some values into some of these youngins. So, I mean, it's a wonderful experience all around for you.
Thank you. I mean, even like the goth thing aside, when I was doing like the controversial, super sexy thing, like, you know, there was still a connection to the fans, because even though I was playing, you know, that kind of character, deep down, it was like, nope, I'm still a dork. It's cool, you know? And I think that's also what helped. Like, yes, they hated me. And, you know, we established, like I said, that story where I was like this total bitch and everything, and they hated me. But, you know, at the core, they're like, no, she's still that dorky Foxy that's probably backstage in her glasses right now. It's like, yep, I was.
Hey, as a fellow dork here, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm still, you know what it is too? We get to, you know, turn up the volume on ourselves. And I think that's what's great. Just letting everybody let loose and be themselves. Like you were talking about that goth look. I'll be honest with you. I was a kid that loved like pop music. Like you had the boy band scene in the late 90s, and you had like everything R&B wise. I love music, and we'll talk about some music here in a second. Miss,
hell yeah.
What Well, I mean, these crazy 80s over here, we'll get to that in a second, ma'am. But it's one of those things where, like, I'll be honest with you, I remember, and it's funny because I remember going into FYE, and I think there was a Korn CD in there, and like I was thinking about getting, I'm like, you know what? I think it might have been their greatest hits. It wasn't like one of their like Follow the Leader or the one that had the transistor on it. It was like a greatest hits, and my mom's like, you don't listen to that music. And I'm like, well, you're not around and you don't like it. So, I mean, like, that's what I'm going to use. That's what I'm going to listen to it in like my own spare time. It's like she almost had a heart attack because I wanted to get like a Korn CD, but I'm like, all right. But no, it's one of those things because my mom, it's funny because my parents worked in radio in the 80s. So 106.1 BLI on Long Island, they did their thing from a radio standpoint. And that was a very prominent station on Long Island, played all the music, all the hits. I'm just doing the jingle. I'm doing the slogan right now. So it's one of those things where like you're encompassed with that. And I know certain stations that play rock and certain stations that play pop and everything. And that's what I loved about music. But it's just like, you know what? I can also like everything else outside like Motown and pop music. Like my dad was a big rock fan. Like I remember when I was as a kid getting into his car and there's like a Poison CD, right? And like, like his thing, you know what I'm saying? So it's one of those things where, like you're encompassed by your surroundings and stuff. But yeah, but I will always remember that day when my mom almost had a heart attack because I want to get some Korn, maybe some Marilyn Manson, which just makes me laugh to this day. But it's like, it's just, I know, but it's like, it's one of those things where, because my mom wasn't into that stuff, my dad really wasn't into that stuff either, but I'm like, this is my generation. What do you want me to expect? Disposable Teens. It wasn't just Christopher Daniels' theme song in Ring of Honor. It's just a great ass song.
I think all moms had the same reaction when their kids wanted to get a Marilyn Manson CD because my mom did too.
I mean, you had The Beautiful People, which not just the SmackDown theme, but it's a great song. The Dope Show. I'll be honest with you, like I was such a fan of Soft Cell with Tainted Love, and then he did the cover, and I'm like, meh. Just because I have that image of Soft Cell and that classic song by them with Tainted Love. I mean, you remember that. Okay, were you a fan of the Tainted Love cover that Marilyn Manson did?
I was actually, yes.
Okay, all right. And I'm not hating you on it but I'm not going to hate, like jump down your throat like, I can't believe that you like that. No, it's one of those things where it's just like, I think a lot of people can attest to this. Like you have that song and then you just don't want to see it covered. And it's like with movies, like you have that original in your head and then they remake it and it's like, no. So yeah, it's kind of like equated.
No, I get it. I absolutely get it. Because especially with cover songs, like I'm really big on cover songs. So like I get it. Because one of my favorite songs that's always in my top 10 is Close My Eyes Forever by Ozzy and Lita Ford. And I never wanted to hear that song covered in my entire life. And if I'm right, I believe David Draymond of Disturbed covered it with Lizzie Hale of Hailstorm. And I hate it so much. But other people love it. And it's like, okay. So I get it.
Oh yeah, I mean like Johnny Kemp when he did Just Got Paid Friday Night, like that flow, that greatness of Johnny Kemp's song. And then I'll be honest, as a kid and a lot of people who grew up in the 90s like myself, like 2000 comes around, here's NSYNC, No Strings Attached, and they did like a pop version of it. It's not bad, but I'm like, you know what? Justin Timberlake's adding a rap on this, and I'm like, what are you doing? You know what I'm saying? Like what are you doing? So, and I had that same thing because like Jacquees, who's like relatively new, but I'll be honest with you, he hasn't done shit. I'm not trying to hate on him, but let's call a spade here. So just back in the 90s, Soul For Real had Candy Rain, R&B song, like one of the best R&B songs, Candy Rain. And this dude's like adding like verses to it. And I'm like, no, you're killing the club. What are you doing? Another one that happened. Nope. I think a lot of people, I don't know if you've seen this, like, okay, Blackstreet, No Diggity. I like the way you No Diggity, got to bag it back. Okay, I'll sing the whole entire song. Another level. Here we go. So Jen McMillan, it was a female artist that did it. And I'm like, why are you adding a funk track to an R&B song? And it's like Blackstreet and Dr. Dre has that flow for sure. And then here comes this woman like messing it up. And I'm like, and I'll be honest with you, Kev on stage, who's a comedian, hilarious comedian, was like, I had to go listen to Blackstreet just to like drain that out of my system because it's like, no, like you had to flush like the fatness out of your system. You got to go back and listen to some old school 90s R&B, like to cleanse your soul. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, I do.
It's what the effect of music has on you. And that's what I always loved about music and pro wrestling because there's a lot of tie-ins with it. And I'm going to say something. Back in the day, we had some badass themes for pay-per-views. Like you were talking about Disturbed. They had Stricken for New Year's Revolution. Stone Cold Steve Austin's theme. Like you had a lot of great rock songs encompassed in professional wrestling. Evanescence, Bring Me to Life, No Way Out 2003, Limp Bizkit, Crack Addict going into WrestleMania 19, that rock Stone Cold Steve Austin promo package. Saliva will be here all day, but that was always what I loved about music and wrestling because of the themes. And also, if you think about it, music and wrestling are both work of arts and very similar in the touring schedules.
Absolutely. I mean, wrestling and music just have this marriage, like even like that started in the 80s with the whole rock and wrestling thing. But I think a lot of people, just they sleep on the fact that music and wrestling are so intertwined and it can hit such a spot. Like, on an indie scene level, you know, say you have a great wrestler with a great gimmick, but their entrance music doesn't fit. It kind of doesn't flow and you could feel it. Or, like you said, with pay-per-views having specific songs to it. Actually, there was back in the day, I remember it specifically because I actually wrote about it in my book, this very moment. It was during the MTV airing of Sunday Night Heat, and they started doing like generational packages to music to show the evolution of wrestling, right? And there was one that caught my attention. It was a music video, and they did it to Kid Rock's a long road something. I can't remember the actual name of the song at the moment, but I remember sitting there watching this video with the song that worked so perfectly to tie in like the montages they were doing from the 70s to the 80s to the 90s and all the different eras of the 90s that they had down to what that very moment was in 2000. It touches you in such a way, and it has such a connection, like lyric wise or even just song wise. They are a perfect marriage when it comes to music and wrestling, and it could really make or break anything. When it comes to wrestling, the wrong song will give the wrong vibe, but the right song will just make you remember it for the rest of your life.
Here's what's funny about that, because I'm glad that you mentioned the montages. I used to love like the WWE Desire packages, like one still to this day that I love. They did one with Jeff Hardy, and it was Our Lady Peace, Not Enough was the song.
Yeah.
Okay. So they had that. They had one with My Sacrifice in it by Creed. And
yes.
Stone Cold. Yep.
Yes.
And they also, I remember Jeff Hardy had one later on, like a couple of years, like when he came back, like around 07, 08, they had a Standing on the Rooftops, everybody scream, Okay. So it's like you have those packages that go with that song, and it's great. Like Edge, for God's sake, like when they were going into when he was cashing in the Money in the Bank in like 2006, he's the champ. They played Stains Right Here, and it was like going into him cashing in the feud with Cena, and that was like one of the hottest songs at the time was Stained Right Here, waiting. I mean, there's my Aaron Lewis impression, but god dang, you know what I'm talking about.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
That's what it is. Like you had Stain Price to play. You know what I'm saying? For Vengeance 2003, you had Dope, Today Is the Day. You had all these bands. And I'll be honest with you, I was there at SummerSlam 2007. For those that remember that, the theme song for SummerSlam 2007, before John Cena and Randy Orton wrestled 10 million times, that was the first time they had it for the WWE title. So it's one of those things where like, Wine Up by Kat DeLuna was the theme song, right? She is in the building. They highlight the fact like, oh, here's Kat DeLuna sitting right here, and she sings Wine Up, the official theme song of SummerSlam. Boo! New Jersey booed her out of the building.
Well, it's Jersey. I mean,
hold on there, Jersey.
I wanted to defend my state here, but I mean, it's Jersey.
I mean, I'm about to say, man, I understand it. You're repping Jersey. I'm repping Long Island, New York. I see how it is. I wasn't going to get to that, but you think you got to bring that up. Visit Jersey. Not the rep your state. No, but it's true. I'll be honest with you, because a lot of people were booing. Oh my God. Here's what's funny about that. Like one of the best matches on that card was Lance Cade and Trevor Murdoch against Brian Kendrick and Paul London in the dark match. And I said to myself, why is this in the dark match? Because it was that damn good. And then, I mean, this was the one where Triple H returned with King Booker. And I mean, the storytelling was great, but the match, not so much. But you had so many things on that card. And I just remember saying, like, why is this match, like, not on there? I mean, we had the Diva Dodgeball on there, but I'm like, whatever. Or no, there was a Diva Battle Royal. I'm sorry. There was a Diva Battle Royal. The Diva Dodgeball was like a couple years before that. So it's just like, okay. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's some moments where it's just like, why was this not on the pay-per-view? And I think a lot of wrestling fans can attest to that. Like, why is this not on the pay-per-view?
Yeah.
You repping your New Jersey with Cataluna wind up. And it was not a bad song, but here's what pisses me off. Like, you got a blood feud. Randy Orton's being built to this guy. This is when we're officially getting the punt over, right? He's kicking Shawn Michaels in the head. He's kicking Rob Van Dam in the head. And, he's having this bitter feud with Cena. He RKO's Cena. He coach announces that he's going to challenge him at SummerSlam, right? And then what's the package? Look at me, hat, go head away. That doesn't fit. It doesn't fit. Like, when they had Demi Lovato sing Cruel for the Summer in 2015 with Seth Rollins and John Cena, and here's Jon Stewart up in the mix. Like, they were cool for the summer. Like, it doesn't fit into the, I can't.
I know. So, yeah, certain songs, they went at face value with, okay, SummerSlam, we need a summer song. Yeah, didn't work. I think one of the only pop songs used that worked with a pay-per-view was Peter Gabriel's Big Time.
I'm on my way.
The Hollywood WrestleMania. That worked.
Ooh, yes.
That one works. But like, when it comes to the pop music, not many pop songs fit. And like I said, they're based off of face value of, okay, SummerSlam, summer song. This is a hot one. Let's go with this.
I remember when they had the Kangaroos, and I liked that for SummerSlam 06 because they also had Godsmack, the enemy, hey, you Mr. Backstabbing son of a bitch. Like, that fit. But they also had the other one where it was like, my style is the bomb-ditty dang-dee rule I'm a head with the bomb-dee-dang-dee. But it had a nice feel to it, and I could dig that because it was catchy. But yeah, wind up in that. No, that's the problem with SummerSlam. And I get mad because I got to put the summer songs in there. And I'll be honest, they're doing their stuff now with Bad Bunny. I never heard of Bad Bunny until now, but okay. But it's what
same.
Okay. Oh, all right. We're going to talk about this. So Bad Bunny comes in. I get it. He's very big on the Latin scene, the Latin pop rap scene, whatever it is. And that's great. But it's like, I don't know who this mofo is. And he has like all this merch that's really been selling for WWE on their shop because he's working with them. He's 24/7 champ. He just did Saturday Night Live. Looks like it's going to be him and Damian Priest against The Miz and Morrison coming up. Like, it's great from the celebrity standpoint, but here's my problem. I have no idea who the hell he is. Like, here's the thing. Would Kevin Federline, and I remember this because I was coming down on vacation because we had just gotten our stuff here where we are now in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, right? So Kevin Federline, it's the first Raw of 2007. He's going against John Cena, but it made sense because Kevin Federline was with Britney Spears. He has this attraction. He has this notoriety for everything positive or negative, but he's in the mainstream and it's Kevin effing Federline. So he comes in, he's being the douche. He's wearing the protective gear, and it led to Umaga and Cena going into their bout, and it told the story and him just throwing the money, making it rain or making it drizzle. I mean, with all the money that he had there, John Cena, it's one of those stances where it's like, this makes sense, and I'm okay with this.
Yeah,
but it's
K-Fed doing his thing with wrestling. I loved it. It
so was much. Great. He was so
great.
Into it. He was so great as that heel, that dick. But you wanted to see him get the FU at the end, and he did. It makes sense. I don't know.
The Bad Bunny thing, like, I get it to where, they're doing the whole strike where the iron is hot, kind of similar to what NXT was doing when Poppy was on the uprise. So I get it. He's hot on Spotify, as far as I know. Because I researched after the fact. So I'm like, who is this dude? And, they're doing it to bring in a different demographic. Understandable. You need younger audiences, the ones that are more in favor to an app, or, know what's trending. And I understand that completely. I kind of forgive it because he is a longstanding wrestling fan.
Yes.
The downside that I do see to it is that it's having this effect where now other musicians and or celebrities just think they can get into WWE.
So it's like Bow Wow, what he's Bow Wow's journey.
Yeah, pretty. That's exactly what I'm alluding to, because like it's one thing, to go in there and do some spots like K-Fed did, or like what Bad Bunny is doing, to again just garner more attention to a different age demographic, to get some new fans in. That's, you got to do what you got to do. Again, they did it with Poppy at NXT, and that worked really well. I ended up becoming a huge Poppy fan too. But like I said, it's having this weird effect where, someone like Bow Wow is like, I'm going to go into WWE. And the downside to that is, people that were in wrestling or even are in wrestling are sitting at their home seeing that going, and they'll fucking hire him too. I'm sorry for cursing, but
You're fun.
like that's the exact there's no other nicer way to say it, that everyone's sitting there going, all these other guys are busting their asses either at NXT or on the indies, but Bow Wow's going to show interest on Twitter and they will hire him. So that's the downside of the whole Bad Bunny thing that I see, is the trickle effect of other people going, oh, well, I can do it too, and I'll get hired and it's fine. It's like, oh, here we go.
All he wants to do is see us bounce with him. I remember when you were still little, Bow Wow, for God's sake. Anyway, I think
right.
No, it's a thing where I'm like, okay, he's training with Rikishi and he's training at the school, but I'm like, dude, it's not that simple. Like, okay, here I am. I'm going to train and all that. But like, there's a lot of hard work that goes into it. And I'm also looking at it from a stance too. Like you mentioned Bad Bunny as a lifelong wrestling fan. Like when they used to do the guest host stuff, one of the ones that pissed me off is I hated when Jeremy Piven and Dr. fucking Ken was on the show and Jeremy Piven was making it a joke. You know what I'm saying? And it's stuff like that pissed me off. Like Bob Barker was hilarious, but there was stuff that was great. Then you see sons of bitches like this. And here's the thing that pissed me off as well. Stephen Amell, when he did that spot and they brought him in with against Stardust and Wade Barrett and he was Neville, he did one move. He did a dive off the top rope. And I was okay with that because they didn't have him wrestle the whole match. What pissed me off is they brought him into All In and he's wrestling a veteran, one of my favorites, the Fallen Angel, Christopher Daniels. And they had him wrestle the damn match. And I could tell he trained, but it's like, no. Like what he did in WWE, that one spot, it was great. Look at Snooki, WrestleMania. She comes in, she just does the springboard elbow, the cartwheel in the corner. One move, bada boom, we're done. You know what I'm saying? They don't have them go out and just wrestle like, oh, hey. It's stuff like that where like the little nuances, one spot, the moment, boom, you're there.
Yeah, no, I get it. I feel you.
All right. Well, yeah, I mean, I think that's just the old school mentality too. And also I could take it back to, I think you can understand this. When Tough Enough started, you can see a lot of wrestlers getting pissed because it's like, these sons of guns are on a reality show on MTV. We're going to wrestling school. We're putting in the time and work to get where we are. And here these son of a guns are on a reality television show. And hey, you could win X amount of prize and you could become a WWE superstar. And a lot of people would say the same in a way with the Diva Search, but it's one of those things where the Diva Search is very popular because you had Christy Hemme come through there. You had Ashley Massaro, God rest her soul. You had Layla. You had so many people apply their craft and become legendary with this generation. But it's like you see the stuff with Tough Enough and it's like, you know what I'm saying? Because all these the veteran style, and then here's this reality television show, bada bing, like it's so easy to become a WWE superstar.
Oh yeah, the reality shows. I mean, even so far as the Diva Searches from the women's point of view, it a lot of it was seen as just a quick and easy way in. And when it came to the Diva Search, the general consensus of it was, well, this is a great opportunity for them so long as they're actually interested. Like if you get into the Diva Search, okay, cool. But are you actually interested in doing this? Or are you just doing it because like your agency told you, hey, give it a shot? And a lot of the women that were picked, did go on to do great things. Yes. Thankfully, some maybe not so much, but the general feeling of it was just awesome.
Funny story about the Diva Search. One of the chicks that tried out for the first one, I believe it was Laylene. And it's funny. Okay, I'm trying not to laugh as I'm going to tell this story. Because as a young man, and you watch a lot of reality television show, and you have channels 52 to 56. I'm talking about VH1, MTV, BE, MTV2, Fuse, right in a row. So I put on the Flavor of Love, which was debuting at the time. So I'm looking at the people on that. I'm like, wait a minute. So the girl who became Smiley, her real name is Laylene. She actually tried out for the Diva Search. She was like drinking beer, trying to act like a female Stone Cold. She got rejected. And then all of a sudden I'm like, God dang, this girl from the Diva Search is on Flavor of Love. Like, isn't that some funny stuff right there,
Wow.
See, I mean, okay, as a young man, that just put into my head because I'm like, wait a minute, I saw this girl because, again, religiously, you're watching professional wrestling, you're a fan, and you're watching these segments week after week after week. I mean, like, holy hell. I'm like, then you're on the Flavor of Love. I'm like, okay, got a clock on you. You got a clock on you. Oh, my goodness. But, yeah, this is the prime of VH1 reality shows, the celeb reality, as they used to say, celeb reality. And it's so funny because I saw a tweet, and this is what cracked me up. So back in the day with early wrestling in the 2000s, stuff that would not get away with now. So, all right, I'm going to put it like that because, all right, so Girls Gone Wild, which was the big thing at the time.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so when I'm trying not to laugh. Somebody tweeted out the fact that kids nowadays will never understand the Girls Gone Wild commercials during Monday Night Raw. And I'm like, it's so true, because you know what I'm saying? You're watching pro wrestling. Here comes Girls Gone Wild. Summer, spring break, woo! And that was pretty much the overall general consensus of the commercial. Spring break, woo! And then, back to Raw. And they actually, if you remember, they had like a tie-in connection with Girls Gone Wild during the Test and Scott Steiner feud, because Test got Girls Gone Wild. You got Stacy Keibler, you got Tori Wilson in there. Like, that was the first Girls Gone Wild WWE like correlation and tie-in and relationship, very briefly, you know?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. And that built the Test and Scott Steiner. Like, you had this stuff with Scott Steiner. I'll be honest with you. The matches, but it's one of those things where you had, like, you want to talk about music, like they're building up with Cold, Suffocate off the Year of the Spider album. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm invested in that. Like, you have Cold doing Remedy for Backlash 2003, Goldberg and The Rock, John Cena against Brock Lesnar. Like, this is like, that's a great way to hype it. But then you understand how, like, okay, I'll take it back. Triple H and Scott Steiner, right? Royal Rumble of 3. People talk about it as like one of the most worst matches in wrestling history, right? The buildup is great. They have traps, falling apart in the background, right? They're doing the push-up contest. The build is great, but then when it comes into the execution of the match, it's like, if I can best describe it like that, that's what it was. If that makes sense. Like, you have the build up and then boom, and it just crashes. I mean, you understand where I'm coming from with that, right? Yes.
Okay. Yes, I do.
Okay. I was letting you finish your laugh on there, because it's just like that brought back to my memory of, like, you have this build and then it crashes and burns. And then just again, as we were talking about Girls Gone Wild there, it's just like, yeah, kids will not understand, like, during wrestling commercials. And then here comes spring break. Woo. So yeah, that's a little throwback.
I know, total different time.
Totally different. Like I'm saying, like, oh my God. But anyway, speaking of totally different times, to take it back to a serious moment here, I got to say this. First and foremost, I cannot wait to read your book. Tell me who I'm supposed to be. Man, you've done things from refereeing, pro wrestling, like I said at the beginning of the show, Jill of all trades, and I love the variety and everything that you get, and also to encompass the professional wrestling field and get everything into the mindset, absorb it like a sponge. So I'm going to ask you, Miss Foxxy, the book, which first and foremost, congratulations. You're doing the thing. Talk about the book, because I can't wait to read it.
Okay. Tell me who I'm supposed to be is technically my wrestling memoir from 1998 to 2010. And I say technically my wrestling memoir because it encompasses my life while I was in wrestling. And while it's a personal memoir, a lot of the things that went on with me during that time were very loosely attributed to wrestling, like, starting to train, being the only female there just out of high school, and having to not only just deal with training and learning the world of wrestling, but things that happen because of the world of wrestling, like, your first love, which was horrible, and how you have to find yourself within, growing up and in life, but you're trying to find yourself while you're also being a pretend character. So, who is real, who is not? Is this just an exaggeration of myself, or is this not? And it deals with a lot of other life things, like the best example I can give is how depression struck upon me, something that I always had but didn't know until further down the road by things in wrestling triggering it, and anxiety developing. I found my husband in wrestling, and that's a whole tale unto itself that sounds fictional when I tell it and I write it. But, at the end of the day, if it wasn't for wrestling, I wouldn't have had him. So, like, the book itself, again, there's wrestling, and there's wrestling people and matches spoken about, all of which directly attribute to me and who I was and who I ended up becoming, having my first son, trying to balance the world of being a mom and wrestling, and, working against your husband in a very controversial storyline with your best friends. Like, so much went on during that time period, some of which was my own life, but again, a lot of it being attributed to wrestling. And I wanted to get it out there because it's a totally different era than what people know of now. Like, you have Lita's autobiography is out. You've had the Bella twins write a book, and it's stemming from a completely different era and stemming from WWE. But a lot of people don't know the ins and outs when it comes to indie wrestling and what you have to do or what the mindset is and the things that go on, the good and the bad, as well as how that affects you as a person. And, I want to share the story, not just for other females to read it and go, oh, I can do that, but just as a whole for everyone, wrestling fans, men, women, kids, well, maybe not kids, but adolescents, to go, okay, well, I can do this. Or, wow, she went through a lot of shit and she managed to get through it. That's inspirational. Like, there's so much that I can say when it comes to what's encompassed in the book. There's great and there's good and there's really, really bad. But at the end of the day, it's just, I don't know. I don't want to say self-help, but I don't want to say memoir. And it's hard to really categorize or summarize it all,
If I can help you with it, I'll say it's a fine piece of literature. And I also,
thank you.
You're welcome. And I look at it from a stance of, here's the thing, like, what's great about what I do, and I get to know a lot of great wrestlers like yourself. And I'm going to say this right now, because there's a lot of bad stuff that goes on in professional wrestling. And here's why I say I like being behind the microphone. And number two, I also look at it from a stance, like, look, I've been a professional wrestling fan for over 10 plus years. I mean, I started late. I started in 02. You know what I'm saying? Because I'll be honest, my dad didn't want me watching wrestling. I started in the Ruthless Aggression era, but it's one of the things where I look at it from a stance too, like, what I appreciate about, like, you talk about, I can see your passion here. And I'm glad that you mentioned, like, the WWE books, like Triple H did like a workout book, and you've had, like you mentioned, Lita, Rey Mysterio, but it's all encompassed under the auspices of WWE. And it's like a lot of people don't talk about the indies in books. You know what I'm saying? This is what I like about it too, because there's positives, there's negatives, but a lot of people don't realize, like you're talking about, you have a kid, you're balancing being family, and you're talking about working indies, and you're talking about angles. Like, there's a lot of stuff that you don't see that we've seen in the mid 2000s that we don't really see now. And it's really a different time. And what I appreciate about it too is it's also very eye opening. And like you were talking about, inspiring, encouraging, but it's also like a learning experience for those that want to get into wrestling and the do's and don'ts, so to speak. So you're teaching, well, in the process of just pouring out your soul, being very genuine, being very honest, being very blunt, and it makes for an inspiring, and it's a very telling story. And I think that's what a lot of people can resonate and generate with.
That made me smile.
You're very welcome. No, that's the truth about it too. And I'll be honest with you, like, seeing what I've seen with independent wrestling, and there's a lot of stuff that I love, and there's a lot of stuff where it's like, Jesus Christ. But it's like, there's one of the things where it's just, there's a lot of things encompassed with a lot of endeavors too, whether it be wrestling in general. I think a lot of people can equate it to their actual life. And I think what I like about you is because, like, we were talking about this, like, we're two people that deal with our depressions. We deal with stuff, but we keep on keeping on. I think that also is another thing to talk about, is keeping on, whether it be professional wrestling, whatever endeavor, because we get to see what people like Foxxy Dreams, Foxy Fox, whatever you want to identify yourself as. God dang, man. Referee, manager, professional wrestler, accoutrement. That's what it is. It's a book of plethoras, and it's a book of accoutrements. I'm going to use that term, accoutrement. That's what it is.
That's funny. And like I said, like I try to explain. I really got to figure out how to explain it, because, people hear, oh, wrestling memoirs. Oh, it's just about wrestling. See? It's all about wrestling. And it's like, it's really not. There's so much more to it. And I write it in a way where a wrestling fan can read it and get it, but it's also written in a way where if you know nothing about wrestling, you don't have to, it's just enough where you get it,
Exactly. And that's the point. And I think you said it very eloquently, and you're very good. You're talking about, you don't know how to explain it. That was spot on, because it's true. I mean, like, that's the problem, because people, again, we talk about ultimately dismissed. Oh, it's a wrestling memoir. It's about wrestling. Okay. Like, it's one of those things where it's like, no, I should read the book. You know what I'm saying? It's like, look at what goes into it, because again, people just see professional wrestling, how it's projected by the media, and people focus it on people dying and the unfortunate circumstances that go with professional wrestling. But it's like, yo, actually analyze, dissect, and decipher, break it down. And I'm not talking about DX style, break it down to the people. And that's what we have here. And I think that's what makes great books. Like, I've read a lot of great books. Like, talk about Mick Foley really brings into fruition like the effects of professional wrestling that's had on him and the industry, and you get a great insight. So it's one of those things where I love the fact that we're getting more wrestling books out there and memoirs, because in this particular circumstance, as someone who has gone to indie shows and people that can encompass and really are loving the independent wrestling scene and people that love professional wrestling, it's a great insight. And that's why I'm going to say I look forward to when the book comes out. We're not going to give too much spoilers here, but god dang, it's a great title too, because again, we talk about Jill of all trades. Tell me who I'm supposed to be. You know what I'm saying? You're kind of like the Whitney Houston to pop culture. Just let me be me. Just let me be me. That's what I can equate that to. Yes. But by the way, that is a great title. I have to compliment you on the title because I love that title.
Thank you. It's actually based off of a song. See, we talk music. You know how we talk music before? It's like music is such a deep part of my life that like when it came to starting the book, I'm like, all right, I kind of want to name it this, but I didn't right away. I'm like, no, it has to be after this song because this song is perfect and the title is perfect. It's this title.
Okay, so it's one of the things too, like I'll be honest with you, like we were talking about music, like these crazy 80s, I've seen your stuff and I love that just because the pop culture thing. And I'm going to say this from a wrestling standpoint, and we'll tie these in together. Down the rabbit hole, I'm talking about Noelle Harlow LaGrasso, former independent wrestler in her own right, Vita LaGrasso's lovely wife, the beautiful Noelle. Like, you're just wrapped up in all this stuff, and I love it because you get to talk about the 80s, and I'll be honest with you, I love the pop culture of the 80s, the movies, the golden age of professional wrestling, the golden age of a lot of things, Miami Vice, you know what I'm saying? Like, there's a lot of stuff encompassed in the pop culture realm from the 80s, and then you're doing the stuff with Noelle, and I'm like, all right, here we are, and you're just putting your name out there, and I love it.
It's also to show, like, I mean, I'm one of those people. When I have an idea, I'm just like, okay, let's go, and I have tons of ideas all of the time. But it's also a matter of finally showing everyone that I am a little piece of everything. Like in wrestling, and even after wrestling, I would just get so pigeonholed into, okay, well, this is what she's like, this is who she is, and it's like, no, you have no idea. You have no idea that I'm obsessed when it comes to the 80s and 90s. I love, supernatural conspiracy theories. I love music. I can go on and on about music for days. That's why I started a podcast with my friend Dan, just about music. Like the other one I have a Nerd Herders. My husband and I had Nerd Herders radio years and years ago. And then we just restarted it with our other two friends, Dan and Craig, where now we just talk comic books and, nerd pop culture. There's so many layers to me that I finally want to show anyone, whether they're listening or watching or whatever, that I'm finally at this point where it's like, okay, let's start peeling off the layers, because, you see me on Instagram and you see a selfie, which I hate doing, but I do it anyway, and you just see, pretty girl, makeup, you won't read the caption. You'll just see that. But I'm at the point where it's like, no, there's so much more to me. There always has been, which is also why I'm writing the book. And I'm just ready. I'm at such a place with peace when it came to wrestling. And finally, at 39 years old, finally going, I don't have to be just one thing. I don't have to fit someone's stereotype. Like, I'm so many things and I love so many things and have so many passions. I'm going to just put it all out there because it's what I love and what I enjoy. And hopefully it'll stick with someone. Like, that's my thing. I don't want to stick to someone, but I want someone to resonate, because that's what I always wanted from others, or in the movies I watch or in the books that I read. I look to resonate, because resonating with anything can get you through some really shitty times. And I wish I had more things like that when I was younger, or even in my 20s. And I want to be that, like, not person, but that thing that makes people go, okay, I heard her talk about this on this podcast and I really love it. Let me deep dive into some more of this song or this movie she mentioned, and they resonate and it helps them get through things. That's at the end, at the core belief of everything that I am doing for fun and enjoyment, that's like my main goal is maybe this could help someone out in some way, shape, or form.
I love that.
You know?
I love that mindset because I'm right there with you. I look at it from a stance too, like, okay, I'll equate this with you because with podcasting, I've always been known and still as that kid, like that wrestling kid. Oh, he loves wrestling. I'm like, I'm more than just pro wrestling. Like I could talk pop culture, I could talk this, I could talk that. It's like I love providing a variety, and people think you're nuts for doing that, but because you're just doing all these topics. I'm like, yes, because whatever topic that you have, whatever your words are, like you mentioned, resonating, you could be that person, that voice, if you will, for someone that is going through something or what have you. We have that power with our words and our power as a being, to just provide some good energy and some great vibes into people's lives. So it's like you have a lot of topics, you have a lot of things that really get into your realm and who you are as a person, and people enjoy just realism, and it's very genuine, and also the subject matter, because people can dive into that and get hooked into it. So that's why I'm like, let me do some pop culture over here, let me do some interviews over here, let me talk about this over here. Like, you're doing your thing, and that's why I appreciate it, because it just shows who you are for who you are, and that's what you have to do. Because I mean, people say like, oh, why are you doing so much? People like variety. Give them the variety.
Yeah, exactly. And it almost feels like a certain void in you. Like, we spoke earlier, this week was a really rough week for me, mentally. And, it's hard to get out of it, but I went to my normal go-tos to, lift myself up a bit. And what helped was doing the podcast earlier this week with Noelle and my girlfriend Amber. I finally got a chance to sit here and go, okay, I'm crazy, and you guys get to hear my crazy. And it helped starting to lift me out of that abyss to, being able to even talk to you today. Like, I'm in a much better mood, I'm in a better mindset. And if that can, do similar for someone else to listen to that podcast and go, oh my God, she thinks the same thing I am, I'm not crazy either. Great. I did that. And that's all I can ask for.
Exactly. And I mean, we were talking about our mental health, and I mean, there's a lot of that. That's why there's so many mental health awareness month. And I think that what's great about it too is because we go through stuff. I'll be honest with you. I was the kid that was born with a learning disability. I had fine motor skills. I've seen occupational therapists. I've had epilepsy. I'll be honest. There's times where I felt suicidal and have almost done it. I was unsuccessful, but there's things that people can equate to that, because like people have gone through that themselves with their mental health. And here's the thing, man, because when people in music, like I'll be honest, Papa Roach, they just did the remake of Last Resort. And I love Last Resort as a kid. Like they just did it with some dude on TikTok, from TikTok, what have you. It's different, but it's one of those things where you see songs like Papa Roach, and there's music and there's songs, and I'm going to say this right now, lyricism and verbiage that goes with people to get them out of that mindset of negativity and put them into positivity, because it's that thing. I equate it to, if you ever seen The Stepfather, the remake, like, his father's hardly ever around. Now he's got the stepfather and he's dealing with a lot. He puts those headphones in and his music, and he goes off to the world. People can relate to that.
Yeah, absolutely. And, within all this, talking about it now on the show, and even, I put it out there on social media. So yeah, social media is that, don't hide it. So many people that are doing what I do, like whether it be, writing a book and getting it out there, or, being an ambassador to like a shop, or even doing all these podcasts, we all go through our shit, but so many people hide it, under the guise of social media, to make look at everything I'm doing, everything's great. And it's like, sometimes it's not great. And, there was a point where, my friends know I've never hidden from them that I go through anxiety and depression, and it's been really bad at times. But, this year, well, technically not this year, like the past 2 years, I've made no qualms about the fact of, nope, I go through shit, and I'm going to let you guys know when I go through shit. And I'm going to show you guys how I help myself get out of this shit. Like, I don't hide any of it, and I don't want to ever hide any of it, because why, when you can help someone?
And that's the thing too, because it's not good to keep it bottled up inside. I'm guilty of it. But what's also interesting too is, because you brought that up, like social media, you see posts and selfies, and it's like you see this image of like, oh wow, look at this person. It's like, no, we're kind of using it as a mask to like cover what we really got going on. And it's just like,
Yeah.
I always say to people, like, be upfront, be honest, and just let it out. If you have a problem, just talk about it, because it does. It's a healing process, and that's what I think a lot of people can do and listen to us when we're talking about our journeys and people's past and people's stories. It's like we all keep on keeping on, even through the bad times, and I think that's what makes life worth having, you know.
Yeah, because usually when it comes to me having like depression or when I'm going through things, my usual go-to is to hide out. I don't go on social media. I don't talk to anybody, blah, blah, blah. But when this one hit last week, I'm like, no, I'm not shying away from it this time. I'm still going to post, and I'm going to post about it, not in a pity way, but in a look, I'm going through some shit right now.
Yep.
So
I get it.
It is what it is, and it's, on one hand, it's freeing because I don't feel like I have to hide it. But then the other part of it is, again, hey, maybe it can help somebody out. And that thought alone helped me from really hitting a big, big, big abyss when it came to it. Because usually my depression gets really bad. But like putting it out there, and then, people messaging me, hey, look, I get it. I suffer from it too. If you just need an ear to vent, not to fix you, but to vent. And, getting that from complete strangers was nice and relieving, because I say it to everybody else all the time, and I mean it when I say it to them, but me putting it out there and getting the same response while your head is telling you no one cares really, really helps. And that's why I've been choosing just to be as transparent and authentic me as I can, because everything I offer someone else, I'll never know if I can get it in return. And to show them that I am genuine and that I do get it. And it's been wild, for the lack of a better word. It's been really, really wild, the response, because I didn't do it for a response. But I don't know.
I'm going to put it like this. I think what's great, before I ask you the couple final questions here, I think I got to just say, people, if you got a problem, just speak out. And it's not out of pity. It's out of just, look, we're going through some stuff, and you never know how that could also touch somebody's heart and help somebody. And I think that's what's great awareness about it, is just to just speak up. And we're gonna speak up with this, because first and foremost, I'm going to put it like this. And the overture's here. Anytime you want to come back on the show, it's been an absolute pleasure and a privilege, Miss Foxxy, getting to shoot the breeze, talk wrestling, talk some mental health, talk some music, talk about some pop culture, and just shoot the breeze all in all with you. It's really been a fun conversation. I definitely want to have you back.
This has. Anytime. This has been such a variety, as we mentioned. This has been great.
That's what you have to do. It's a variety, man. Talk about it. Be about it. I'd say preach on it. I'm going to go to gospel territory. Put on some Kirk Franklin, Mary, Mary. Y'all know what I'm talking about? Y'all know what I'm talking about. Anyway, I digress. Last thing I did want to ask before we do the social media now, being in the professional wrestling game, having that knowledge, everything instilled with you, do you have any advice for any of the youngins nowadays trying to get into the scene, trying to get into professional wrestling? Talk about schools, talk about what have you. Any advice for them?
Well, yes, actually. Well, to anybody, to the females or to those that identify as female, just know that, what the current state of women's wrestling is not the end all be all. If you are interested in wrestling but don't want to wrestle, there are plenty of other different avenues to go. You can be a manager, you can be a referee, you can be a ring announcer. Just because they're not as focused on as women's wrestling does not mean they don't exist. And don't feel as though you cannot be a part of the wrestling world if you're not a female wrestler. That's first and foremost. I mean, at the core of it all, yes, always find a good school, always find good people to surround you with, but never allow yourself to get bitter is one of the most important things I could say to anyone interested in wrestling. Watch the product, study the products, don't hate the products, don't be bitter at the products, just go into everything with a learning and open mind all of the time. And with that attitude, you will learn so much more. Sometimes even just by watching or listening, because those are two very important elements other than physically getting in the ring to train. Listen to others talk, listen to their stories, watch. Watch the stuff that's on television, watch your local independent stuff, watch two other people train in the ring. You can pick up so much just by listening and by perception. And when you take those things and then you get in the ring, you'll find that you automatically do have a full grasp of what to do next, or what will make sense and what won't. Even if it doesn't hit right away, it'll click eventually. So again, other than finding a great school, which you could easily do on Google these days, not like how I did, then oh, like I said, watch and listen to everything, even if it's just a sheer podcast, because you will learn leaps and bounds more things than you might when you're just in the ring. And those are very, very important things to know.
Beautifully said. And this is where I step back, Miss Foxxy. Ladies first. It's not just a Queen Latifah song. There's another pop culture reference. Please promote please promote the Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, even the YouTube, where people get you on all social media and audio platforms. Go ahead.
Okay. If anybody is interested in more of what makes me tick, you can follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and Snapchat, which is at Viva Foxxy. That's VIVA FOXY. YouTube.com/Viva Foxxy as well for old footage, interviews, podcasts, videos, etc. Facebook.com/Foxxy is my official Facebook page. And if you would like to contribute to getting my memoir to an editor, there are 3 ways that you can do so. First, there is patreon.com/Foxxy, which is a monthly membership at several tiers at $1, $3, $6, and $13 a month, all of which give you access to a ton of Patreon exclusives for the book, such as soundtracks I've created for each chapter, Foxxy reacts videos to all of her old wrestling footage that no one has ever seen the light of day of, and so much more. You could also head on over to vivafoxxy.threadless.com for t-shirts and pins and a bunch of other accessories that I've created based on the motivational mantras, I would say, on social media, like #Rise and Grind or Music Saves, as well as Zazzle.com/store/Viva Foxxy for the same merch, but as paper products like pens, notepads, bookmarks, Post-its, and things of that nature. All of those things contribute to the editor fees for when the first draft of my book is complete, which will be very soon, because after editing, it gets sent to the publishing company. And that's it.
Links will be in the description. And I'm going to say this right now, people. Support your local indies. Support Foxxy. Support everything that's encompassed with professional wrestling. And check out her book. There's a lot of great stuff coming from Foxxy's end. And I'm going to say this right now. For NYWC footage, go on to NYWC's YouTube and watch their latest tournament. Watch everything encompassed with NYWC. Check out some Foxxy and Ken Scampy, who I still hate to this day. I'm only kidding. But it's one of those things where I look at it from a stance of people. There's a lot of great talent out there. I mentioned Dickie Roz. I mentioned the old school to the new school of NYWC, the old school to the new school of independent professional wrestling. It's just a good time. It's all around. It's just a good time. So check her out wherever you get her on social media. Check out this show on SoundCloud.com/MCLarkin92, StephenMikeShow.com, and Andre Corbeil's Wrestling with Wrestling page. Miss Foxxy, do you have any final words for your fans who have been supporting you since day one? Do you have any final words to the people?
Just keep on keeping on, rock and roll, and thank you guys for any supports, whether it be monetary or just sharing a link or even just listening to this podcast and hearing me rant. That's it.
For Foxxy, my name is Mike Larkin. This concludes another edition of On the Mic with Mike, and I will talk to you in the next episode. Thank you, Foxxy.
Thank you.